What's good all? I'm Jeff, and after a year and a half, or maybe just a few hours in the real world, Season 8 is here. Despite initially being delayed due to Hollywood strikes and mass job reductions, Rick and Morty has been revived, with a season premiere that shoots and scores. Right around Season 4, Summer became much more integral to the story. Episodes like this one display why that was a good decision. Here we have the teenager as a successful, affluent leader in the tech industry. It raises questions such as, is this a time skip, alternate dimension, or maybe even a dream? This seemingly infinite universe can allow any of those opportunities. Right off the bat, they set the central theme, the cardinal sin of borrowing, aka stealing, phone chargers. Although Summer's doing well for herself, it's literally spelled out for us that none of this is real.
Remember, if you borrow his phone charger,
I know.
It's really important you give it back!
The awkward shoehorning in of this charger message really stresses the point, makes you wonder where this is all going. Meanwhile, Summer's going to visit her noticeably aged and rustic brother Morty. He is not looking too bad and still reluctantly cares for his sister in spite of what happened between them. Despite their matured appearances, apparently less than a day has passed in the real world. Morty in this time has forged a hectic life for himself and a bond with some guy named CJ. Summer's revolutionized the art of charging phones, freeing the habitants from the shackles of cords. This was the liberation felt when our earbuds went wireless. Without the need for chargers, the Matrix has been rendered obsolete, short-circuiting and freeing them from their entrapment. Exposition comes in the form of Spencer Grammer's hilariously frantic rant on being trapped by Rick to teach them a lesson on returning chargers. Speaking of voices, I'd say Ian Cardone and Harry Belden got settled into their roles, sounding very natural. So, if the kids became middle-aged in just a few hours, if days passed would they have grown gray in there? Unable to die, existing as specks of withered arthritic dust. Not willing to part with their new knowledge, the two decide to keep their false memories intact. I suppose those memories exist in their brains as imagined sequences of events. Now that Summer's emotionally matured, it hits that much harder how much being a teenager just sucks. Especially nowadays in the mean girl, sassy man apocalypse. This mental upgrade does have the benefit of leveling ground between mother and daughter. Summer's newfound confidence starts out refreshing, but quickly spirals into condescension.
Can I call you Beth? Absolutely. And I'll call you Summer. Oh, right, of course.
Of course, it would be frustrating for a parent to lose their leading status less than overnight. Frustration you can see in the slight facial expressions, glares, Beth gives her daughter, who honestly has been insufferably invalidating so far. At least it seems to be on purpose. On the other hand, we catch up with Morty, who's become an automobile aficionado.
We're a little off. The struts were a little... Wow, okay, the struts were a little off.
All to Rick's surprise, who continues to underestimate his grandson season after season, even after leaving him to rot in the Matrix for a quarter of a lifetime. A Matrix prison, as Morty clarifies. Yeah, no vendetta there. Glass shattering triggers some severe PTSD in Morty, who did not have as triumphant of a run in the simulation as Summer. In fact, she abandoned her brother in the system, which led him into the system. This is a prime example of what Morty deals with in this family. Betrayed by his grandfather in the real world, betrayed by his sister in the virtual one. No wonder as time passes, Morty's become less well-adjusted. Highlighted by this montage of the boy coming into his formative years in prison, struggling to assimilate once more into society as a convicted felon. A moment I feel like this episode doesn't take lightly. Morty struggles to fit in both in reality and in this alternative one. Tastefully, he drowns his sorrows in booze and comes across another ex-convict who gives him some direction. Suddenly, Morty's made a home in the Matrix, dedicating his life to protecting what matters most, our devices. Eventually, he does get his snorkel added, and I always appreciate when little details make a big impact. Beth's exasperated tone tells us she has had enough of her obnoxious offspring. Summer has killed both Beth's patience and phone battery. She needs a charger, and Morty needs lots and lots of therapy. Back in the Matrix, war-stricken Morty discovered he was immortal. Possibly the darkest part of this episode, Morty dying repeatedly for a not-so-noble cause, though I suppose people have killed for less. It also shows how unfit he is for battle, unleashing friendly fire on himself. Morty's exploding while Beth's imploding, taking it upon herself to mind-blow the arrogance out of Summer, without even knowing how the gadget works. Nice continuity though to have this technology make a return since Morty's mind-blowers in Season 3. The split of inter-family drama was enjoyable in their own ways.
I thought you were my friend, bitch.
Summer and Beth have a more grounded approach, personal jabs dealt by Summer towards her friendless and vindictive mother, while Morty has a wackier, more cartoonish and...
Also, I didn't know Summer was gonna hijack a vehicle too. I've been planning this a lot longer than her.
premeditated approach to his rebellion. Now both Morty and Summer have gone rogue. Rick, having found himself in a Matrix-shaming Matrix, attacks Morty's lack of originality before the citizens. From this point, things get a bit rushed, but that doesn't dilute the superb setup. We have Morty barreling towards a nuclear structure. His sanity was just hanging on by a thread. Or he was always unhinged, and now he has an outlet to unleash it. On the other side of the country, in the godless land of Santa Fe, Summer's found alignment with these divorcees. As far as being rushed, Summer's cooled off rather quickly from her outburst. Although, to be fair, her mind didn't endure a fraction of the trauma that Morty's did. For a series as cynical as this one, I did appreciate Beth reasoning with her daughter. It's actually a wholesome message, not to grow up too fast. It also speaks to children that unfortunately do have to grow up before it's time. Kids whose parents didn't care for them, so they had to care for themselves, forced into maturation. As we can see, that's exactly what Summer and Morty underwent in The Matrix. I mean, it probably is surreal to reach the point where you and your kids are becoming friends, but even though Summer has the mind of a widower, she's still a 17-year-old girl who needs her mother. It's touching. It's also not the last wholesome moment we get, including Beth regaining her status as mom, and Summer taking after her beef-brained brother. Sped through also is Rick's creation of a Matrix overriding system, though given his godlike qualities, it's totally feasible he escaped in a fraction of the time his grandkids did. Morty continues to relive his false memories as a martyr, or a mortar, perhaps? Right at the point he lost his saving grace CJ, who took his last breath grasping onto hope. That was a good laugh, followed by another as Morty takes out Osama bin Chargin. A scene I found raises questions, but we'll come back to that. Now Morty, living the full hearts, full charge mantra, one I will be stealing, has managed to storm the ravine. Looks like the snorkel had a practical purpose. He did his research on Power Plant Valley. As the charge continues, Summer risks her neck to reason with her brother. Morty tries to empathize with her, but Summer confesses she was much more resourceful than initially thought. She actually had a hand in provoking this war, using propaganda as a tool. It's also why I had an eyebrow raised at Morty's defeat of Ben Chargin. While this show probably isn't and shouldn't be opposed to racial profiling jokes, I still give them more credit than that. Having this brown-skinned man be something of a terrorist, I'm just not surprised it came with a twist, and a welcomed one at that. Poor guy was stereotyped and sacrificed by Summer. That's also not where her cruelty ends. She used the ever-responding Morty as an instrument of war to score lots of lithium. Effectively, CEO Summer is something of a war criminal who didn't even need to lift a finger. It's up for debate who's smarter between the two, but Summer wins in manipulation. After a cathartic emotional release, the two decide it's time to call it a day. They try to add an extra layer to all this by hinting the two are still locked in a matrix, a la, we're still in the hole. Albeit, the declaration was out of the blue, so unless the scientist is a part of Rick's vast network and was familiar with the kids beforehand, it comes off as random.
Never steal your grandpa's inventions!
No!
Plus, the duo assaulting NPCs that turn out to be actual people would be in line with this show's flow. Summer and Rick were too late to stop the detonation, but expectedly, it's child's play for the latter, emphasizing how toxic both nuclear reactors and American tip culture is. So, in another quick turnover scene, Morty gets a commemorative tattoo, keeping a piece of their lives that are being left behind. Of course, he immediately regrets the decision since this random symbol now means nothing to him. Once again, Sister had more foresight, imparting her accumulated knowledge to the Summer who's lost it. However, teens aren't interested in wisdom, they're interested in whippets.
What are we having tonight, bitch?
Well, there is no contest which was the better premiere between this one and the last. I'm not sure how many casual fans or newcomers are tuning into Rick and Morty at Season 8, but it's still nice after a year and a half to reestablish this chaotic clan. Noticeably with the patriarch mysteriously absent. Well, maybe that title gives Jerry too much credit. This episode did have such a great blend of tones. We get dark humor in the form of Rick practically giving his grandchildren brain damage, although it's not all bad for Ruler Summer, discounting the well-written mother-daughter drama. Beth wants a connection and validation from her daughter, but also wants the respect a decent parent is due. It was interesting to watch them toe that line, ultimately realizing they couldn't. As sadistic as this series can be, this episode also had some good messaging. For one, we have Morty gaining a found family, then, well, watching them be killed off before his eyes, even including himself. This all puts him in a depressed stupor that's genuinely unpleasant, but captivating to watch. In reality, he does have a sibling that cares about him. Although it was in a twisted and Rick-coded manner, I believe Summer acted in a way that she thought was best, or at least most efficient. Cause, as stated, Rick would have woken up eventually, But Summer wanted them to hold on to a semblance of control over their lives. Deep maturity that's emphasized in season Summer up until reverting back. Another theme that I appreciated, the blissful depiction of being a young adult, even if that bliss is enjoyed in youthful ignorance. So overall, it's sweet to be back, and this premiere was strong, deserving a strong 8 out of 10.